Excellent. So welcome to our first monthly. We're going to start doing this monthly now. So every 4 weeks, we're going to be doing a monthly community Zoom, just kind of meet, talk about our topic of the month and kind of the habit that we're trying to work on, as well as answer any questions that you might have about the habit, but then also about the programming too. Because remember, this is the same program I'm doing. Like I'm doing all of this with you all. So everything that you all are being programmed, I'm doing it with you. I'm doing the barbell track. Um, in case you're wondering, so I'm doing a lot of the movements. The main lifts of the day are all barbell, but honestly, the programs are always the same. There's just going to be a differentiation between the main lift of the day, generally being barbell or not. And sometimes there's going to be two lifts in a day, especially as we get into the next cycle, which we're going to be doing some rows and things like that that are going to be more barbell centric. So spicing it up a little bit. But trying to do this every 4 weeks, I think it's just a little bit more fun because then there for a while it was like, yeah, every 6 weeks. And then sometimes with the holidays, it turned into every 8 weeks and it got weird. So I was like, no, let's just do it every month. I'd rather see you all more regularly, anyways. So, sleep is this month's topic and habit that we're working on slowly. Keep in mind, there's going to be a huge caveat with sleep when I talk about sleep. If you're a new parent, if you're a parent at all, if you maybe have some fur children that are a little feisty in the evening or in the middle of the night, maybe excessively lick themselves, or they might be puppies, they might have to use the restroom or something like that. Like there's going to be different pockets here. All right. So please keep in mind that I respect that. Same thing with, what Vanessa brought up earlier, like, hey, what about menopausal, perimenopausal individuals? I get it. I'm perimenopausal, 43, just show a couple of symptoms, but nothing major. It's just kind of one of those things you gotta roll with the life, right? So please know there is a caveat. There are going to be individuals who are going to be a little bit better sleepers, quote unquote, better sleepers, a little bit more naturally better sleepers than others. Now, that being said, I am an awful sleeper. Like I historically do not sleep very well at all. And I think I put it in the post, but I can't really remember. Just so you know, I have a brain cyst. It's literally in the middle of my brain. Cannot be removed. Uh, Actually, I think removing it would kill me. It's larger than it should be. Let's put it that way. Most brain cysts are measured in millimeters. Mine's measured in centimeters, if it gives you any idea. Once they cleared it and determined it wasn't brain cancer when I was like 25, cool. That was awesome. Very happy for that. But where it is can actually impact my circadian rhythm. So please know, naturally, like I am naturally not a very good sleeper. I never have been. When I accidentally discovered that I had the brain cyst, it answered a lot of questions about, a variety of things that I was experiencing at the moment. But please know that all of what I'm sharing today comes from a place of like not being a very good sleeper just because of my body and things that are quite literally out of my control because it is something that just can't be removed, unfortunately. um, so yeah, that's a little bit about me. I just wanted to make it clear that I am not coming from a place of I'm an excellent sleeper and I think that everyone should be an excellent sleeper, and come join, like come to the land of unicorns and rainbows. It's nothing like that. In fact, I've been like just an awful, awful sleeper. So, however, there are some things that I've done, and I'd love to share some of the best tips as well, uh, that are kind of universal tips in terms of just ways that you can improve your sleep and things to focus on when it comes to improving your sleep overall. Okay. Welcome, Veronica. So, first things first, words matter. I'm very adamant about this. I believed I was a bad sleeper, therefore I thought I was more of like a victim to my sleep when I was in my teens and 20s, and just kind of like living on very minimal sleep. And early on in my life, I was under the idea that I had to really work hard, and that involved just less sleep, unfortunately. And that mindset did start to dissipate when I started to realize like how much better I felt when I did get about 7 hours or more of sleep. Because keep in mind, like a majority of my life, it's been like 5 to 6 hours or so. is what I would go on. And I was the type of person who was like, oh, I'm one of those, people that have been hit by lightning, and I'm okay on 5 to 6 hours of sleep. But then when I started to experience like longer bouts of sleep, it was life changing. And I quickly changed my tune and learned, like, okay, this is the way that I should, maybe start to approach my life a little bit more. And the more I put effort into my sleep, the better the payback was. And I thought that was really cool. And if you've listened to my podcast at all recently, I've talked about how, especially in the last like 12 to 16 weeks, I've really focused on changing my sleep. And I did get a wearable device. So I did get an updated Garmin. This is like my fourth Garmin I've ever owned in my life. I haven't owned any other brands like Sunto or any of the other ones, Fitbit and things like that. So there's nothing wrong with those brands by any means. And I'm not saying, hey, go out and get a wearable device, because you don't need one. However, for me, I'm constantly asked as a coach about equipment that people can use. And I do like to have some sort of wearable device to have for my bike rides and things like that, because it is nice to have a little bit of data to compare. When I found out that you can wear it to bed and it can track your sleep, at first I was thinking that's going to be annoying. I'm just going to be honest with you, like it's going to be annoying to wear a watch to bed, right? However, it actually wasn't. And the feedback that I got on it wasn't everything that I looked at. All right. So if you have a wearable device, what I do recommend is using it to your advantage. What I mean by that is, I mean, look at the data that you get every evening and then try not to live on it. All right. Try not to live by it. What I mean by that is, take a look at the data, and then even before you look at the data, check in with yourself. So try not to be biased by the data that's going to be produced by your watch or wearable device. Instead, try to think about, okay, self, how do I feel this morning as I wake up? Do I feel well rested? Do I feel like I got some pretty good sleep last night? Did I dream? Did I have any dreams that I can remember? And no worries if you can't remember your dreams either, but did you dream? And just how are you feeling? Um, excuse me. And you should have somewhat of an idea on how long you did sleep, generally speaking. So check in on some of those things and then look at the device. Then kind of see how it compares and see what the device output, the data that you can get from it, see how that compares to how you feel. And then start to see some comparisons and things like that. What's really cool is a lot of wearable devices that are a little bit more of the advanced technology, so the latest technology. I'd say, within the last 2 years, they do include the ability to sense when you're in certain phases of your sleep, like when you're in REM, when you're in deep sleep, when you're in light sleep, and things like that. You should, for the most part, be in light sleep for most of the evening that you're asleep. Or if you're a shift worker, I have to remember my shift workers here in the group. If you're a shift worker, if you sleep during the day, light sleep should be a majority of the sleep time. Okay. Deep sleep, REM, should be about 25, 30-ish% of the overall sleep that you're getting. So keep that in mind. All right. So for me, I get a couple of hours usually of each, REM and deep. And REM is what can help you process your thoughts and memories for the day. It's usually when you're sleeping or when you're dreaming as well, rapid eye movement. And same thing with deep sleep. Deep sleep is actually going to help you recover, help your brain recover from the day. So you do want those two to be present in your sleep. If you're having some emotional disturbances, stress, stressors, a little bit more present, things like that, we're going to talk about some things that you can do here in a moment. But that can obviously change your percentage of deep and REM and light. Okay. But majority of it should be light, because and I'm saying that right now early on, because a lot of times that is a very common question that I get is, Jen, I get like 6 hours of late sleep a night or 4 hours of late sleep a night. And like, that's just, I'm hardly getting any REM, or like they're getting enough REM. Like they're getting like 2 hours again of each, or 2 hours of deep sleep, but they don't think that that's enough, because they actually think they should be getting more deep sleep and REM than light. So I want to go ahead and say that that's not always the case, right? So just to alleviate any concerns. But use some tools if you can. But the reason we're talking about sleep is because it's literally the best performance enhancer from which you can benefit, okay? Without having to take a supplement or things like that. Now, you can take some supplements, which we'll talk about. Keep in mind, I am not a medical practitioner. I do not want to ever advise someone on things that could possibly counteract with any medications that you're on. I will give suggestions for supplements if you're interested in things like that. But please know I'm trying not to go out of my scope of practice. I like to leave that for my medical professionals, but I can give you some advice and then ask you to, hey, talk to your, medical doctor or talk to a registered dietitian or someone like that who can actually, I can suggest, but they can prescribe, if that makes sense. Okay. And there's a lawyer present, so I don't want to, I gotta keep things, legit here. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Yeah. But no, that's just how I work my business. That's just how I like to keep things, because I always want you to feel like you're in safe hands. And also, I do not sell supplements. No, I'm not that type of health coach. Like, it's more power to people who want to do that, but that's not me. Okay, let's dive in. So first thing you need to do for ideal sleep, calculate when you should go to bed. As silly as it is, think about when you need to wake up in the morning. Now, when you think about when you would need to wake up in the morning, think about work, like if you need to start work or if you need to go start your workouts, whatever it is for you in the morning, you have kids to get to school, like whatever it is. Think about what time you need to be out the door and ready for your day, or what time do you need to wake up, right? So then kind of go from there. You need to wake up at X time, great. And you prefer to have about 7.5 hours of sleep. I know a couple of folks who messaged me some questions and things like that, mentioned how they love to have closer to 8 hours of sleep, which is awesome. If that's what you feel is best for you, then by all means, stick with 8 hours of sleep. No need to try to reduce it to 7 hours. I'm just saying 7 hours is a good minimum, 7+ hours, okay? I will say the more active that you are, if you especially are training for some more endurance events and you're riding a little bit more, you're lifting a little bit more, you're just working out, your output is more during the week, you might require a little bit closer to 8 to even 10 hours. At the Olympic level, I know none of us are Olympic level, in this group, but I mean, you are in my heart. You're at Olympic level in my heart, but you're not at an Olympic level technically. But a lot of Olympic level athletes do sleep, sometimes 10 hours roughly, 8 to 10 hours, usually in that range. It's not saying that you need to sleep at that. Because that was one of the questions that they did get was like, oh my gosh, Kate Courtney, I think Milo just scratched at my door. Kate Courtney gets like, I think she said she gets like 10 hours of sleep a night. Like, Jen, I am not getting that much. I'm like, whoa. You don't have to. It's fine. Just again, minimum of 7 hours. Some people might realize though that 8 hours is more their magic number, and that's cool. So it's nice to know if you already know about how many hours of sleep feel good for you, great. Then use that. Yeah, Veronica, she feels great with a 9-hour night. For me, I'm actually groggier when I sleep 9 hours, unless it's after a really, like anytime I've done like century bike rides or something, just long distance, I usually do sleep about 8+ hours on those nights. But for me, I feel groggier and I feel kind of out of it, right? Veronica, like, yeah, she feels like awesome at 9 hours. Cool. So you already know what you're aiming for. So great. Take the time you need to wake up, right? And then subtract the 7 to 9 hours, whatever you need to figure out your bedtime. It might be earlier than you think it is. It needs to be, Another thing you might need to know about me is I'm actually notoriously a night owl. I am naturally a night owl, but I'm also a morning person, which is like the curse. But I think it's because I did so many years of getting that 5 to 6 hours. And, if I could go back in time, I would have changed that. But, it's one of those situations, what's done is done. But if you're more of a night owl because you feel more energized, things like that at night, we'll talk about that in a moment. But ideally, figure out your bedtime because you want to figure out what time you need to be up in the morning, calculate back from that 7 to 9 hours, and then that's the time that you should be in bed. Now, keep in mind, there needs to be a buffer because a lot of us take at least 5 minutes or so to fall asleep, or at least do a wind down. So then there's the additional time in bed. Like I'd say give yourself another 15 to 30 minutes as a buffer to get you in bed and get you kind of winding down. Again, remember the caveat that I shared earlier today. Like if you have especially young children, just do your best. Okay. So please, this is not like me speaking at you and trying to make anyone feel guilty. I just want you to do your best when you have small children, especially. Okay. All right. So that's the first thing. Allow for some extra time, allow for 15 to 30 minutes to kind of fall asleep and wind down and things like that. Then I want you to think about the hours before your bedtime. All right. Now, I usually like to break this down into a couple of different groups, three different groups. There's 6 hours before bedtime. Well, technically four groups. I'm sorry, I can't count today. Still hypoxic from my workout. All right, so there's 6 hours before bedtime. Then there's 3 hours before bedtime. Then there's 1 hour before bedtime, and then there's bedtime. All right, so there's four categories that I want you to think about. Let's go over the 6 hours before bedtime. This is pretty easy, but it might be difficult for some folks who enjoy the caffeine, enjoy the Java, or enjoy like Celsius or other elixirs and drinks that have caffeine in them. 6 hours before your bedtime, that's when you should aim for no more caffeine between that and your bedtime. And the reason for that is because caffeine has a pretty long half-life. So it can actually stay in your body for about 8 to 12 hours, depending on your body, because we each process caffeine differently. In the 6 hours before bedtime, just try to limit your alcohol, right? So if you do drink excessively or more on the heavier end of the spectrum, do try to at least like be mindful, maybe limit your alcohol 6 hours before bed. I'll talk more about the 3 hour range because you're probably thinking 6 hours before bed, you're turning me into a day drinker, Jen. Like, what the hell is this? Yes, I am going to turn you into a day drinker, especially on the weekends. And the reason for that is because it's actually you're going to feel so different, especially for us females in the group who are a little bit closer to 40 than we're closer to 20. You're going to notice a difference in just how your body processes alcohol. Like, I'm just going to say it. Like, that's one thing that I have definitely noticed. And even my watch is yelling at me about my HRV and all this other stuff. Whenever I have had alcohol, I'm like amazed at how much of an impact it has on me. So that's 6 hours before bedtime. Now, keep in mind, I didn't say no alcohol. Okay. I only said no caffeine, which I know kind of sucks, but it is ideal. That's going to be an ideal scenario. 6 hours before bed, no caffeine, and limit alcohol. Okay. Now, 3 hours before bed. This is the one that I have noticed a big difference. And it's kind of blowing my mind, actually, the more I experiment with this. Eat your last meal around 3 hours before bedtime. I am a late ass meal eater. Like, I am a la California. Like, Californians like are notorious for eating like 8, 9 p.m. dinner, like, yep, right before bed. And I say that because I used to work extensively in California, and we used to always have like our clinics, and then we'd, do patient hours, and then we'd be expected to have our like group dinners. And no joke, they'd be at like 8 p.m. And I was like, man, I gotta hang. And I lived on the East Coast at the time, so it was way off my body clock. But I will go ahead and say, just try to get as close as you can to 3 hours before your bedtime to eat your last meal. Now, this is going to be really different when biking season is here. You're like, dude, Jen, I am wrapping up my bike ride like sometimes an hour or 2 hours before bed. Just going to be honest. And this is the case for me, especially for those of you in the Denver area. You know that I volunteer extensively with Comba. I do those group rides. There are things that I'm going to be implementing, especially this year, because I've seen such a huge impact in my sleep performance and improvement with doing this one tip of trying to eat better or trying to eat earlier, that I'm definitely going to be implementing some things. So I'm going to be doing some smoothies and things like that. So my dinners might look a little different on those nights that I'm doing those bike rides. Okay. But 3 hours before bed, try to aim for your final meal, right? Now, that's your final large meal. So you could have like maybe a small meal. Like for me, I love to have freaking chocolate. You're going to have to rip my chocolate squares out of my cold dead hands before you have me not like have it before bed. Like I just I know chocolate has a little bit of caffeine, so don't like crucify me here. But it has such a minor amount and it doesn't impact me. And it makes me happy, makes me feel a little happy. So I'm not gonna take away my happiness because so far it's actually not impacting my sleep. And again, you're n equals one. You are the biggest person you can experiment with and figure out what works for you. And this is what I've found works for me. And this is also stuff that's research backed. So I'm letting you know kind of what I do because I don't want you to be like, oh, well, Jen has shared on social media that she eats like chocolate squares before bed. Like, what the hell? Like, make up your mind, Jen. I do. But I eat my last meal 3 hours before bed. 2.5, you know, two definitely I'm trying to have as my like maximum before bed. This is incredibly important, especially if you do tend to have like GERD or digestion stuff, especially as you age. You know, sometimes your stomach acid levels can change as you get older and things like that. So you kind of want to work with your body. So this is a great way to work with your body. All right. So 3 hours before bed, have your last big meal. Now, this is when it should include your last bit of alcohol. So if you do like a nightcap and you do love to have a glass of wine, try to have it a little bit earlier if you can, because it can impact your sleep a little bit less. Okay. Fortunately, alcohol doesn't stay in your system nearly as long as caffeine does. You're pretty good there. But the reason for this is digestion, whether it's liquid or food, it takes energy and it can actually prevent you from falling asleep effectively or as quickly as you would have liked. And it can also cause some restlessness. So if you're the type of person who maybe wakes up multiple times in the middle of the night, it could be because you might be eating too close to bedtime. So just something to think about. And then do start to limit your liquids if you can 3 hours before bed, because hello bladder. Okay, I know some folks will just have like the need to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. So just something to think about. All right, 1 hour before bed. This is the magic hour, not the magic hour. That actually was a bad choice of words, but like magic hour in terms of like, this is your time to wind down before bed. This looks different for everyone. So please know I'm not going to be like, oh, you have to do X, Y, Z in order to have the perfect bedtime ritual. No, I just want you to figure out what works for you. All right. I'm going to give you some ideas here though. But the main points before bed for that 1 hour before bedtime is to stop working if you can, please. Just try to stop working, especially things pertaining to work. And then also don't do any personal work either. Like even things that might, in essence, bring you joy. Like my work definitely brings me joy, but I'm like my combo volunteering and things like that. Like that stuff does bring me joy, but once I start thinking about it, I can kind of go into a mental spiral. Even if I'm not actively thinking about it, subconscious is still thinking about it. So that's why the big suggestion with research is to try to limit your working and your personal work, especially like paying bills and things like that, in that hour before bed. Right. So make that hour before bed like your magic hour where it's just you, maybe your partner, maybe, kiddos, things like that. Stop working and doing any type of personal tasks, especially on a screen. Now, I do know this is one thing that I love to do. I love to watch a little bit of Netflix, like for an hour in the evening, usually right after dinner. We usually sit down and we'll watch something. Um, I was just trying to think of what we've been recently watching because I was like, oh, I need to suggest this, but I just can't remember right now. Damn it. And we actually started to watch another show on Netflix and it was awful. So I will not suggest that for you all. But yes, try to limit TV time too if you can. And I'm not trying to sound like an evil like parental unit, but it can help. Basically, anything that is blue light emitting, which does include modern TVs, and it does include your phone, and laptops and things like that. Anything that emits blue light can stimulate your brain and can basically act like daylight. So even this right now, I actually have it on like an F lux. So my color, like I look a little bit more tan than I actually am right now on my screen. Okay. So I have the Flux app installed on laptop and like personal phone and things like that. And I do recommend something like that. Caveat though, please do never do any shopping with that app. Activate it because it changes the color of things that you're buying. So don't buy your new bike, or don't buy shorts or something that you're like, oh, those are pink shorts or those are red shorts, because they will probably be pink and you won't actually realize it. So just as another little caveat, not that I'm saying from personal experience or anything like that, but actually one of my coaching friends, he fortunately loves the color pink, but he thought he was buying red swim trunks before he and his wife went out for vacation. It was their first vacation after having their kid, and he ended up getting pink swim trunks in because he also has the F-Lux in. So just as a heads up, in my little coaching crew, they were like, hey, don't buy anything when you're using F-Lux, which you shouldn't be on your laptop anyways at night if the F-Lux is triggered, because you can set timers on the F-Lux app and things like that. But definitely try to limit your blue light, which means no screens, limit TV, limit your laptop and phone. That hour is hard. And I'm going to go ahead and say it. I had a hard time with that because I have a tendency picking up my phone. Let me just check. Let me just check if someone left me a message that I might need to check, or I don't know. I just, again, I just start to think things with work or even personal life or things like that. Once you pick it up, you're going to get that dopamine response because you're going to see someone liked something that you said, or someone commented or sent you a message, and it feels good, right? It feels good to see a like and a message and just a share or whatever it is, right? But unfortunately, that dopamine response, like, it lasts for a short bit of time, and then it's getting you stimulated, and it does stimulate your brain, so it makes you think that it's daytime because you're looking at the blue light. So do try to limit that within that hour. What I recommend, because I don't want to be all like, none of this, none of that, just no fun before bed, because that's not doable either. Instead, replace these items with other things. So just try to get off technology if you can that hour before bed, just 1 hour before bed, and try to like doodle or color. There's a coloring book. I mean, you all know I have colorful language. I like curse. There's a coloring book that is an adult coloring book that is curse words. So you can color in like curse words and with flowers. It's like curse words with flowers and like dolphins in the background or whatever it is. And it's hilarious and actually pretty funny, and kind of cathartic too. But even if you're not artsy, everyone can color in a coloring book rather. Because it doesn't really take much effort and it's also really relaxing. So what they're finding in research is that it can actually really relax you and help you kind of find a moment in the present. And that's ultimately what you want to get, especially if you're not really much of a meditator or anything like that. And meditating might not be your shtick, may not be your thing. So you can always try coloring, you can try doodling, you can try writing. I will talk about journaling here in a moment. You can do something else artsy. I have this thing. Oh, let me show you. Hold on. I have this thing. It's called a Zentangle. Take Along Tangles is the one that I have. And it's a Zentangle, and it's literally like these designs like this. All right. So you fill in stuff like that. And it's kind of like doodling, but they show you how to do like how to tangle is what it's called. And it always makes me think of tango. But you can tangle, blah, 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 and do things like this, and they have like a template that's already filled in. Like here, let me show one. Oh wow, that's one that they already have filled in. Damn, I haven't even done this one. So I can just continue to add on to this one, right? So stuff like that. And you just need an ink pen, which most of us have, right? And you can just kind of doodle with it. It's kind of fun. Now I will go ahead and say I am actually artistic. Like I do like to draw and paint, things like that. Have I done it consistently, regularly in the last like 10 years? Not at all. But this is a good like substitution for it for me. And even folks that I know that are not necessarily, they don't claim to be artistic, find that useful. And again, just centers your brain and gets you out of thinking. Reading, talking, try not to talk about work, but do try to talk about maybe a win of the day, or talk with your partner or a best friend, or maybe roommate, about like something that you're grateful for, or something that was a positive thing that day. Try not to definitely talk about any negative things for like the last 30 minutes or so before you do go to sleep, because you don't want that to be kind of the last thing on your mind. And believe me, this is not me trying to be like toxic positivity or anything like that. It's just me trying to set you up for success with having a little bit more of a positive thinking going on before bed. So I talked about writing a moment ago, and this is where journaling can come in handy and can really be a nice release, especially if you tend to think a little bit more about work or things that might be happening in your life with work, or personal things, finances, things like that. Then it's a really good time to do a brain dump. And a brain dump is kind of a weird statement, but it's just what we call in in the coaching world your opportunity to have a journal, write down just free space, like give yourself 2-3 minutes, write down random crap that's on your mind. All right. Doesn't even have to be a full sentence. It just needs to be crap that is on your mind and out the pen. Becomes the paper's problem. Okay. What they also find is that when you do this, especially before bed, and especially after you maybe log out of work and close things out, when you release some things that are on your mind, sometimes your subconscious starts to think about it and starts to not dwell on it, like to keep you up, but it's because you've already released it on the paper. But what's cool is, problems that you've released on the paper, and when you're journaling, your brain starts to think about it and starts to solve things subconsciously when you're dreaming and when you're asleep, which is really rad. So some high performers are starting to realize this and find that they actually can come up with a solution the next day to something that might be problematic for them. It's really cool, and it has actually worked for me with a problem that I had with something in one of my programs. So it's really cool. So give it a try. But journal, brain dump. I do really recommend having some sort of reflection on your day. Like just a nice little, hey, what was a win for the day? I'm real big on like a top thing for the day. Start off with maybe like something that didn't go so well and what you could do to change it, but then end on like, hey, this went really well, and I want to continue to do more of that. All right. So journal, get some brain down, get your stresses out of your mind and onto the paper. Last but certainly not least, bedtime. In bed, try not to have the TV on, especially if you do have a TV in the bedroom, right? Just try not to have it on. Even if you're like, oh, but it helps me kind of fall asleep. Cool. Just turn the screen off and like have the noise. Like if you need white noise or something like that, there are some things that you can actually get on some current day like smart TVs in terms of like white noise apps and things like that. But try not to do any TV or screens like your phone. And I know you probably knew I would say this at bedtime. And there's probably a reason why you knew I would say this, because we all subconsciously know that the phone just keeps us up. We get that scroll, like our little scroll thumb gets happy, dopamine hit, dopamine hit, dopamine hit, because it stimulates your brain. So just try not to have that at bedtime. Don't have the phone in your bed. Have it at least on your nightstand, out of reach, or across the room or whatever, especially if you do need to use it for an alarm. But at bedtime, also, again, replace that phone with something like a Kindle or a book. Just try it. And I know you're probably thinking, hey, a Kindle, though, that's technology, Jen. You just told me no technology. I said no blue light. The Kindle actually, especially the new ones, the paper white ones, oh man, they're only like $100, I think now. Um, but those things, like I've had mine for, which I know $100. Oh my God, that's expensive. Mine was gifted by my wife because she couldn't stand the sound of my paper book turning in the middle of the night. So she kindly gifted that to me a few Christmases ago. But dude, Kindles, they last for quite a few years. She's had hers even longer. I think she's had hers for like 10 years or something wild. So please know it is an investment up front. Maybe get some Amazon gift cards. Not that I'm trying to say, support Jeff Bezos or anything like that, but like it's a nice way to have a book with you, especially if you are a traveler. I know quite a few in the group do travel for work and things like that. So it is nice to have a Kindle with you. And the Kindle, the paperweights don't give off blue light, especially if you do have the low backlight on a lower setting, which is nice. Now, in that bedtime, I said, okay, no screens, replace your phone with something like a Kindle or a book, just give it a try. Make your room a cooler temperature if you can, which I know sometimes can be a little challenging during the winter, but the goal is 66 degrees Fahrenheit or about 19, 20 degrees Celsius. I'm awful with metric, somewhere around that. I think it's right around 19. Um, but yeah, right around 66, 67. Like for us, we have ours set at 67. Um, and that seems to work for us. So one of my symptoms is I am a freaking radiator. If you ever meet me too in person, like even just like when people hug me, they're like, "Good God, Jen, you're like hot. Like you are physically just hot." And I'm a hugger, so if you meet me, like I'm gonna probably hug you if you give me consent. Um, but I just run hot. Like girlfriend here, even since I was in my 20s, I'm a freaking radiator. So it has not gotten any better as I've aged. Like it's gotten just worse, especially at night. So sometimes that might mean like being selective about what you're wearing to bed, just minimal clothing, no clothing, whatever's comfortable for you. Again, I'm not going to suggest that because that's what's comfortable for you. But sometimes, especially if you are getting perimenopausal or menopausal, you might need to adjust that and just, choose your clothes smartly. Maybe lighter clothes would be really beneficial. And then also lighter sheets if you can. So try not to have like flannel sheets even during the winter, especially if you are experiencing symptoms of like hot flashes or things like that at night. Um, but yeah, try to keep your room cooler if you can. Make it as dark as possible. Oh dang it, I didn't bring my eye mask. I have a really sexy eye mask. It's not sexy at all. It's just an eye mask. I have two versions. So I have a Manta sleep version from Manta, and sometimes, so I'm a side sleeper, so sometimes it can get really clunky and like not very comfortable. But I will say Manta does make a side sleeper one. But because I run so hot and also I'm aging, so like I try to limit my facial wrinkles as best as I can. Because I just I don't want to get, you can get whatever you want done, in terms of injections, but like I just personally don't want to do that. Because chances are I would be allergic to it. But like for eye masks, I just recommend silk, especially if you live in an arid climate, like here in the Colorado area or parts of California or Arizona, New Mexico. I know we have some folks in the desert areas. Try to do silk. The reason for that is it can limit wrinkles, first of all. It can also help with your oily skin. If you do have oily skin, I have oily skin like my dad. My dad has incredibly oily skin. So I just take after him. But the silk can also feel cooler too. So if you are having temperature issues, it can feel cooler, can help with your skin, and can help you like not dry out and increase. It won't increase any like crow's feet wrinkles and things like that. I hate to even call them crow's feet, but just facial wrinkles. Same thing with like pillow covers. Maybe try to do silk pillows or cooler temperature pillows or things like that that can help. But just make your room as dark as possible. That might include an eye mask. The last thing here is make it quiet. Unless you do need white noise, then try to have a white noise app or white noise alarm or something like that play. But earplugs are also an excellent tool. Now I know some earplugs, a lot of folks have been telling me like, "Oh, I've tried earplugs, Jen. They are so uncomfortable." And I do agree, especially the foam ones. I personally do not like the foam ones very much. However, I did find, actually it wasn't even me, it was Erin. I found it, but she bought it and it didn't work out for her. Because she loves earplugs and she didn't want to use the foam anymore, especially for environmental purposes and things like that. So she ended up getting Happy Ears, and it's called Happy Ears. And I can share these in the link too when I send out the email tomorrow. But Happy Ears is a Swedish company, and it's about $40 for a discovery pack. You can figure out the sizes that are perfect for your ear. And it's nice because I'm a side sleeper, and when I put them on, um, it doesn't bother me, which is really like miraculous because every other earplug I've ever tried has bothered me with my side sleeper. And what's cool is they're reusable. You can just hand wash them because they're silicone. So awesome. It's a win for the environment. And it's $40 for the discovery pack. And again, you get 3 sets of earplugs, all different sizes. So figure out what size you are, wash the ones that you're not using, and then see if your partner likes them and they fit their ears or something like that. But then you'll know what size is your size for if and when you do need to replace them. Because even though they're silicone, they probably will uh, disintegrate over time or just, start to kind of maybe not have a good seal over time. So just something to think about. Now, last but not least, some one-time changes that you can make to your sleep. First thing, try to go to bed around the same time every night and try to wake up around the same time every day. That does include weekends. Just try to do your best. I know, I get it. Like sometimes the weekends come over and you're like, dude, I don't have to do a workout in the morning. I don't have an early morning bike ride. Kids don't have to go to school, like whatever it is for you, right? Great. If that's going to bring you joy, I'm not going to be here. I'm not going to be the anti-joy monster and tell you not to sleep in a little bit. Sleep in a little bit, but just know it might impact your sleep come Monday or whenever your work week starts again. Okay, so just something to think about. Second tip, and this is a really important one, and it does carry over into some of the questions that I'm going to answer here in a minute. Try to go outside and get some sun on your skin as soon as you can after you wake up. Even if it's a cloudy day, just get outside, especially, oh my goodness, for us, even here in Colorado, we normally have like excessive amounts of sun. This winter has been exceptionally hard, folks. Like it's been a little bit darker and gloomier than normal. I'm sure Jen can probably attest to this. Like it's just been, it's been a little hard, like a couple extra days a week. And it's made me realize how much the sun here impacts me and how much of a positive force it is for me and just my mood. But just try to get outside, even if it's overcast, it's cloudy, wintry. Just try to spend about, if you can, 20, 30 minutes is ideal throughout the day, but try to get at least a few minutes first thing in the morning, as soon as you can, to get you on the rhythm with the circadian rhythm. So the circadian rhythm is just that nighttime cycle, like bedtime cycle and things like that. Okay. That helps set you up for success with your circadian rhythm. And also it does help at the end of the night too, just trying to watch the sunset or get outside close to the sunset time, because then it's like it's a nice little trigger. Even if you are going to go back into your house where there is artificial lighting and things like that, maybe try to turn down the lights a little bit. And I don't mean that in like a romantic way, but just try to especially if you have overhead lights, because man, those things can get really rowdy. Just try to turn them off. Like for me, even in my office, I don't have my overhead light on. I do have my like small desk light on and a low light on over here, just so you all can see me. But it does help to just kind of reduce some lights if you can indoors too. If you have dimmers, more power to you. Appreciate the fact that you have dimmers, and just dim some stuff. Then the third tip and final tip is to get some activity in during your day. Aim for about 20, 30 minutes if you can. Some sort of movement, whatever makes you happy. Sure, that could be a shred strong workout, of course. That's what I did today. I told myself I was going to do it. And then do some movement that feels good to you. I know a couple of folks have been trying some yoga. More on that, by the way. I'm talking to another member here who's a yoga instructor, and we're in cahoots. We're trying to think of something we can do for the Shred Strong group that includes some yoga. So stay tuned. She's a really rad human. But get some activity in, whatever that looks like for you. Okay. Because that will help you sleep. All right. So first things first, any questions about what I've covered so far before I dive into the couple of questions that I haven't answered yet in what I've talked about? You can just unmute yourself and hop on. Some water. Okay. So a couple Q&As that we have here. One person messaged me and said, this is Helen. She's like, hey, I'm trying to shift my sleep pattern to go to bed earlier and wake up a little earlier, with the goal at one point to consistently wake up early enough to do a short workout. High fives, win, boom. It's been hard to do though, shifting that rhythm. Wondering about any strategies for that. All right, so Helen, answer your question. First of all, know that morning workouts they take some getting used to. I have no way to candy coat that. Like they're going to take some getting used to, especially if you're going like really intense. If you're doing like the last week or two of the cycle when we're really increasing like intensity, it's just going to be tricky, especially if you're not used to working out in the morning. Like I just have to be blunt about that. So give yourself some time to acclimate to it. It usually takes people 2 to 4 weeks to acclimate to a little bit more morning workouts, especially when they're not cardio based and maybe they're more strength based. Okay. Because especially if you've been thinking, I mean, let's think about it here. We've been laying in bed for hopefully at least 7 hours. And then you go get up and if you already historically have some joint stuff, or maybe some low back stuff, or just, some things for as we get older, um, you're already feeling a little creaky anyways when you get up. That's the scientific term. So be patient with yourself as you're kind of getting up. Maybe do like the movement flow just to kind of get you going. And it's actually something that I have in mind for this yoga instructor to possibly do is just like a quick little morning routine that to get you kind of moving after you've been horizontal for a few hours, right? Um, but like do some cat cows, do some like little thoracic twists, maybe do some bend overs to touch your toes or your shins or whatever, knees, whatever your range of motion is. Do some things kind of wake up your body first before you get in to the actual workout. So that would be my first suggestion. Do some things kind of, wake up. I actually do not suggest that you drink coffee before your morning workout. And that's because, and I'm a coffee fanatic, I love coffee. I actually no longer drink caffeine, but I love the taste of coffee. So I still drink decaf. But you actually don't want to drink coffee first thing after you wake up. You want to wait usually about an hour after you wake up. The reason for that is because of the adenosine. So caffeine actually doesn't, it's a stimulant, but it's also not. It actually mutes your adenosine a little bit in your body. And that is the feel, like that's basically the hormone that regulates your feeling or your acknowledgement of feeling tired. And when you first wake up, your body is trying to adjust the levels of adenosine in your body because this is when you get that cortisol spike in the morning. Your body's starting to become awake. You want to actually use your body rhythm to its advantage. So try to hold off on your caffeine about an hour after you wake up. This is especially important if you notice you have an afternoon slump of energy. It's because you just massive micro or massive dose to yourself with caffeine first thing in the morning, and it is actually impacting your circadian rhythm, your oh my god, your cortisol rhythm as well throughout the day. So try to hold off about an hour after you wake up. Give it some time because again, this is going to take another week or two to have your body adjust its hormone levels because you're adjusting your hormone levels when you are adjusting your caffeine intake. And you'll notice a difference in your energy levels, and you'll probably even notice a difference in your afternoon energy levels. Now, of course, other things can impact your afternoon energy levels, like are you eating enough and things like that. But that's a whole other topic we'll talk about soon. But try to hold off on caffeine too for those morning workouts if you can. I know I'm just like an evil monster today in today's thing, like today's Zoom call. Please know I'm coming from a place of love, and just some things worth exploring. All right. The other thing with your wake up earlier, like morning wake up call. Now, Helen, I know you work in healthcare. I cannot remember for the life of me what time your work starts. So remind me, maybe I might message you just to kind of get a little bit more clear on this in terms of timing. But this time of year, the sun's not necessarily up really early in the morning. Like the sun doesn't really rise until like 7:30, depending on where you are. You're west of us, so I think you might actually be. Damn, I wonder what the sunrise is out in Junction. Anyways, I'm thinking out loud, folks, so I apologize. But depending on what time the sun actually rises for you, just try to get outside and try to get the sun on your skin too. So what I talked about earlier, Helen, that can also help you kind of reset the circadian rhythm and help your body kind of come a little bit more awake with the sun because your body is meant to rise with the sun, basically. But those are my tips, just to give it some time. You're going to take some time and patience to get used to that. Limit caffeine until like just hold off on caffeine, postpone caffeine for an hour after you wake up, and then try to get some sun on your skin as soon as you can to wake up. And then also do like some sort of morning flow that like feels good, like sun salutations. Like I used to do yoga religiously. As cheesy as they are, sun salutations feel fantastic in the morning. Hence the name, right? Second question I had, Casey, what do you do about bedtime procrastination? And I joked in the Facebook group, like, yeah, we're all like small children stuck in adult bodies because we, and now as adults, we're like, no, like, we want to stay up. We want to do things. Like, there's things that we want to do. And I get that because, again, I'm a night owl. Again, it's just going to be a matter when it comes to bedtime procrastination, it's going to be a matter of just reminding yourself of how good you feel when you do get good sleep. And once you do get good sleep, you want to keep getting good sleep. And then you want that to be your normal. And then have those random days where you stay up with your friends a little bit later, or maybe you stay up and you watch that extra episode or two, or you stay up and watch a movie or whatever it is for you, or you go out. So you want those to be kind of like the rare days every week, right? Maybe limit those to like 1 to 2 days, 1 to 2 nights a week, but have most of your days be filled with more positive sleep. Okay. So remember how you feel when you do get good sleep. And then try to determine, like, hey, what is it worth to you to have that extra little bit of time, to yourself that night? Like, is it important to you? Like, will it truly bring you more joy than actually getting more sleep? The other thing, I mean, honestly, it's going to be a matter of getting into a routine. For me, I was so resistant, especially when I did make like a lot of changes to my sleep like a few months ago. I was just like, oh man, I'm finally taking all that advice that like I give folks. Because again, remember, like I've historically thought that I was a shitty sleeper. And I'm trying to change that mindset around it, especially as I'm getting older. Um, but it boiled down to just me coming to realize like how much better I do feel with sleep. And then like that became such a motivating thing for me. Like less anxiety. I felt less low, and I'm a usually very happy, upbeat type of person. But during the winter, I can feel kind of low here and there, especially when we're not getting sunlight and things like that. So when I'm getting all of these positive things that are telling me what positive things sleep bring to me, it was just reinforcing of that, like not procrastinating bedtime. Okay. So hopefully that helped, Casey. I know it's not really like a straight answer because, again, it's just going to be a matter of getting used to a new routine, but also just remembering why you want some more sleep and how much better you feel when you sleep. It's going to be really important. Okay. All right. Any questions as we wrap up? Change it to you so it's not just on me.
I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Not relating to sleep though.
Yeah,
is that okay? Like,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So today was my day to do like the bike tempo intervals.
Mm-hmm.
And I am, hold on one second. I can ask my wife to mute the TV for real quick because I don't know if you guys could hear that. I'm sorry.
Just a little bit. No, you're fine. You're fine.
No, so I wasn't sure. I was trying to I don't have like a trainer or anything like that. So I was just going to go outside.
Hell
And
yeah.
I'm really not understanding because I've never done this before. The whole like
the RPE
10-minute
stuff.
RPE or all of that kinds of stuff. So I'm just trying to challenge myself doing intervals. Really, like I'm doing a quick and easy, like 10-minute spin, and then I find there's a hill near me, and I'm just trying to like go up and down that thing. Basically, is what I'm trying to do.
No, that's fine, and that's going to get you a good push, anyways. Like you're going to notice a difference even with that. Just try to follow the time domains that I list.
Right.
Like 4 minutes, I think, is what I have for this week. Like 4 on, 2 off. Yeah. Okay, good. Because I can also pull it up too.
Yeah, 4 on, 2 off.
Okay, cool. So with the 4, you just want to get into a climb, and it should be fairly challenging. Which, I mean, let's be real. Like pretty much every climb is challenging. Like but I'm not saying like, hey, do 18% like in San Francisco, right? Like like pretend like you're going up Lombardi. No, nothing like that. But we do want it to be challenging, and I want to say it was like an 8 or 9 out of 10. I wouldn't have it as a 9. I bet I have it as an 8 if I'm not mistaken on the RPE scale. So with that, like you're gonna feel like you're doing an 80% effort. So think of it like 8 out of 10 is going to be about 80% out of 10, out of 100% rather. All right. So like, you can maybe talk in bursts and things like that. And I do have a training guide that kind of lists like what the RPEs look and feel like,
Okay.
whether you're lifting or whether you're actually on the bike. So look at that. I can actually pull it up real quick because I don't remember off the top of my head what that actually equates to, because I have to reference it too. Now I use my watch as well. So my watch actually helps me determine what the intensity is personally, but we're all different. Let's talk through it. Let's talk through
My watch has like the colored coding zones.
it. Okay, perfect. Yeah, no,
So if
that'd be good.
that's kind of what I need to go off of, then that's,
Yeah, that can definitely help. And because this is a little bit of an older interval that I've written, because it's such a good climbing interval with the reduced rest. Where is it? With the reduced rest period. Ah, there we go. And I'm actually in the process of updating the training guide too for Shred Strong to have folks learn how to calculate their like, heart rate maxes and
yeah.
like heart rate zones themselves because some people don't have heart rate monitors. And I want to empower folks. Oops. I want to empower folks to figure out what that is on their own.
Yeah.
Yeah. And da, 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 da. So for the RPE at 8, you're basically like at, above your lactate threshold. So you should be feeling it as you're climbing.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to feel very vigorous. And yep, okay. You can speak in syllables or a short sentence. You're definitely
Yeah,
breathing
that's not what I
heavier.
did today then.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah. You're
I
definitely
did
breathing
way more
heavier.
than that.
Yeah. No, it's fine. As long as you're not like, just think about 10 out of 10 on the RPE is going to be like full on sprint. You're seeing red, you're tasting nickel and blood. Okay. So that's what I like to think. So I like no 10. To me, 9 and 8 and even 7 can get kind of uncomfortable. And that's cool because we do want to get a little uncomfortable in our training, and kind of push ourselves a little bit more, but we don't want that to be all the time,
Right.
especially if you listen to my Zone 2 podcast episode.
Yeah.
Like, we
Yeah.
definitely want to have like a ride or two a week of just like, we're just kind of chilling. We're a little bit more conversational, at least for a period of time, because we all know mountain bike rides. There's nothing that's conversational about mountain bike rides. Like, let's just be honest, unless you're living in Florida, that's really flat. And even there, like some of those trails can be deceptive. Um, but we want at least the beginning of whatever ride it is, even
Yeah.
if you don't have time for Zone 2, have at least the beginning of the ride be a nice little warm up into then doing like a regular bike ride or then doing your intervals. So if you need to sneak in Zone 2, great, do it as your warm up before you do these intervals
Okay.
and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But yeah, no, it's good.
Okay.
Yeah, and I kind of want to, I'm talking to my virtual assistant too about like editing this document and maybe throwing things into a table. It's just sometimes the table, we're having issues with spacing it on in the training guide. So I think it might
Mm,
have to stay in the current form, unfortunately. So that might be why it's like, Jen, dude, I don't understand what this is. So I'm wondering if maybe I should like try to instead, because I'm a visual person. So I like threshold, like I like colors, like green to red, like red
yeah.
is tasting nickel and
Yeah.
blood in your
Yeah.
mouth. So maybe I'll do that and then have it underneath like a key or something. I don't know. I need to play around with it a little bit because I do want to change this training guide some more. But yeah, does
Well,
that
thank you,
help,
Jen.
Mia? Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah, it does.
Hell
Yeah.
yeah. Sweet.
I'm gonna say goodbye to you all because I have to go and do wifely duties. So it was
I
good to
understand. I
meet
do
everyone
too.
else that was in here.
Yeah.
It was
Excellent.
awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, it's good seeing you, Mia.
Okay. Bye, guys.
All right, bye. All right. Anyone else have any questions before we log off? All right. Excellent. Well, I'm gonna not have this be a long goodbye because I've got to eat my dinner. I got to do this 3 hour before bedtime thing. And I came from the gym with just a protein shake. So I'm gonna sign off. If you ever have any questions, just message me. I'm here for you. This is what I love to do. Anyways, I'm gonna say goodbye and expect the email from me tomorrow with the link to the recording, as well as I'll probably attach the training guide too, just so folks can kind of see what the heck I'm talking about in case it got lost in your email. All right. Have a good night, folks. Bye, Jen. Bye, Kristen. Bye, Veronica.